Stand like Stone Cold with a few beers. Play the game, I in the game, I'm champion, I'm Triple H. Undertaker, I'm your maker, bury the brother like Kane. Ooh, 1-3, hit the tombstone, hit the choke slam on face. Ooh, yeah, like a macho heel, tell like I'm muscle. If you suffer like tomatoes, I'ma keep a couple models. Ooh, and you may call me HBK. When I'm tuning up the vein, you best be getting in my way. Ooh, yeah, I'm degenerate, I love it, yes, I love it. If you wait down with that, then I got two words for you, suck it. Too sweet, too sweet, put your fangs.
Welcome everyone to your longest running Australian wrestling podcast, Wrestle Radio Australia. I'm your host, Todd Eastman. It feels like I've only just seen you a couple of days ago. Anyway, I've just gotten off from recording with Andrew Rose, and like I said during that show, originally that was going to be the open for this episode, but we went so long talking about the PWA show that is coming up on the Friday night. This will be up on Saturday, so the show would have already happened. And how good a show was that? Hey, how good was that show? Aren't you glad you went and bought it? I really hope you are. My guest this week is American comedian Dan St Germain. He hosts a wrestling podcast in America. He hosts a wrestling podcast called WrestleRoasts, which is if you're a fan of roast comedy, which I'm a big fan of roast comedy. This is roast comedy, but focused on wrestlers and wrestling. And not only that, but they also do talk about the NXT, SmackDown, Raw, AEW product as well. There's some good insights there because one of the guys that is one of the hosts of the show is a former WWE creative writer on the creative team, and I know that I think Dan has had flirtations with that sort of thing. Dan is also a screenwriter, comedian, like I said before, and he's done some color commentary on Spring Break, Joey Janela Spring Break, and all of that. But yeah, really fun chat. This is not a normal Wrestle Radio Australia, so we don't talk a hell of a lot, if any, of Australian wrestling on this. This is just two guys talking wrestling right here on Wrestle Radio Australia. Dan St Germain, thank you so much for joining me today, mate.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Getting up at the crack of dawn.
Yeah. I say to that's the funniest thing. Like when I interview other guys, normally because I do it after work, I come home like, oh, thanks for joining us tonight. Like saying today, it just feels friggin' weird.
Yeah, man. It's I kind of wish I'm like a morning and a night person. I'm not an afternoon person. Like I wish that we could just sleep afternoons, but I don't know.
Bit of a Mexican sort of deal, like the
siesta. I need the siesta. Absolutely.
So, you host Wrestle Roast. You host Wrestle Roast podcast over at the moment. I want to say in America, but fucking podcasts are everywhere. So you host Wrestle Roast.
I think we're number 483rd in Ireland. So,
oh, there you go. You're killing me.
I'm killing it.
I screwed myself in the market by calling myself Wrestle Radio Australia. So I sort of
that's it. That'll do it.
Sort of narrows my reach.
Well, yeah, but I imagine that everybody who's in Australia who wants to know about Australian wrestling, who would be living in Europe or whatever would listen, right? I mean,
oh yeah, there's a good 100 people, sure. I'm sure.
Yeah, there's a good 100 people. That's the thing, is the audience isn't that big. Like even if you really canvassed it, it's not going to be. It's not the same amount of people that like Jay-Z want to hear about Buddy Murphy.
Well, very, very, very true. You're a stand-up comedian. You've been doing this podcast for a while now. What made you?
This podcast is new. Like Wrestle Roasts is new. But I had a wrestling podcast for a couple of years that had no focus at all. But now we after 2 years we finally found a common thread. So there we go.
Do you ever find that living, because being that you live in America, you're doing a podcast called Wrestle Roast. Do you ever get feedback from the guys that you've roasted?
We just started. I just got tagged with Sean Spears today because I talked shit on him. So we'll see how that goes. I mean, all these guys could beat my ass. So it's, I mean, anybody who has professionally wrestled can beat my ass. It's just there's a level of toughness that I don't have. I mean, I used to like amateur wrestle, and I've taken like cupcake MMA courses and shit like that, but nothing that's real. So I imagine at some point somebody is gonna be. I mean, I escaped. I did voice commentary for Joey Janela's Lost in New York show, and I totally blew the ending. I announced a wrestler before he came out, and nobody killed me there. So I think I'll be okay, but we'll see, man. You really just hope, though. It's like we roasted Big Show this week. I would love it if Big Show hit me, because then I could sue him and make some real money. But we're doing Virgil next week, and I don't want any part of that, because it's like, if Virgil hits me, I'm just going to get a hit in the face. I'm not going to be able to take that guy to court.
Virgil only has fuck money, so I mean,
yeah. yeah.
Because I was, excuse me.
Well, we try to be fair, man. I mean, that's the thing. Is we try to be, this was we did the roast of Brad. We didn't have one Owen joke in there. We don't. There are certain things that I just wouldn't touch. I wouldn't make a bro UE joke right now. There's just certain things I wouldn't do.
That's that's one of the things I thought. I was like, when you did the roast on Brett, I'm just like, Brett's not the kind of guy that would not respond to criticism.
Well, here's why I don't think Brett's going to say anything. Number one, it's the old wrestler thing of, if he says something, then he sold it, and that means that we because anytime I've talked to a guy backstage, it's like the last thing you want to do is sell the fact you got your feelings hurt. That's death. At least that's what it is with American territories or whatever. And the other thing is, we said he was a very good wrestler, and that's all Brett gives a shit. We said he's a great wrestler. I'll say it again. Brett's one of the best ever. But all the other stuff that we said was kind of completely fair. So, but we have had wrestlers, which I won't say, reach out lately and compliment it, but they would never come on the show. They've said that we'll never come on the show, but we really like that. I'll tell you after, but we really like this joke about this guy.
Yeah, I get that a lot with my Twitter. I have a lot of opinions about stuff AEW do. I get so many messages in my inbox going, "You're so dead right. I can't like it. I can't fucking respond to it, but you're dead right." I'm like, oh, motherfucker.
Dude, it's in a lot of ways, it's AEW and WWE. It's WWE is almost everything wrong about corporate Republicans. They make all those sociopathic kind of Republican moves, but with AEW, it's the fake left, if that makes sense. It's the Nancy Pelosi Democrat, fake, inclusion. But wait a minute, on the other show, Bobby Lashley was champion. On this show, we haven't
got anybody.
Yeah, we haven't done anything with anybody. So I mean, look, it's hard, man. It's hard to find, good talent, whether they're white or black or whatever, But I do think that AEW goes out of its way to pat itself on the back for being progressive, just like WWE goes out of its way to let us know it's a real company. Both of which probably aren't true. WWE is always oh, we were in this conference with JetBlue or something, and JetBlue's oh, don't mention that we were there with them. Well, AEW is more oh, we were about inclusion, and then you find out some of the wrestlers have fake avatars where they write all this pro-Trump shit. So it's
or Jericho's wife went to the march, or
yeah. It's come on, bro. I mean, I know, and look, and I actually have a lot of sympathy for a lot of the people that went to that march. I think they were lied to, and there does have to be a lot of healing. But I mean, on the same sense too, let's just not pretend that, that I don't know, this is Habitat for Humanity. This is the fucking professional wrestling business.
Yeah. But that's and then when they had that fucking banner up there this week,
What was what banner did they put up?
AEW put up a banner like best show, best weekly television show. Dynamite.
Well, WWE does that shit all the time. WWE, it's like,
but not like a champion, not like a championship
winning
banner.
awards every week. I didn't know existed. Every week, it's true. Like the Thunderdome won a Source Award. Like it's like just every week it wins something. Every promotion does that.
Do you think? Because I was thinking about this last night, and because we being that like AEW are on Fight, so we get to see that sort of live. Unless you're home for us during the day, you don't get to see NXT live until it goes up on WWE.com or WWE Network. Do you think the difference is between like Dynamite and NXT is that because Dynamite's filmed in that Daily's place, which is like a big sort of airy sort of place, and NXT is sort of filmed in that small area, it just makes AEW look bigger?
I think it's just that, you know, I really like NXT. I really like a lot of the, I don't know what you feel. I do like the promotion a lot. And, you know, I think Finn's great. There's a lot of excellent wrestlers they have on that show. The problem is that there's still a lot of WWE elements that are on NXT. And if you're like me and you watch Raw and you watch SmackDown, and I think SmackDown's a great show. Raw, I think it's kind of hit or miss. That's the last week. It was kind of a bunch of misses in a row. But there still is enough WWE, like, you know, there's enough WWE stink on NXT that it doesn't feel like that different of a product, opposing to, you know, AEW, where even if, you know, the one thing that Dynamite has above any other show, which, you know, is that it does have that WCW, like, exciting Nitro feel, anything could happen, which is really fun. I mean, that's super important. So having that is great. And I think, you know, I do think that they're going to be, you know, like now that they don't have NXT on the same night and it's just going to be them, you know, I think it's going to be a little harder for them, honestly. I think it's going to be easier ratings wise. It's going to be totally easier rating wise, but I don't think they're going to get the passes creatively that they've gotten, you know, in the past year, just because people, you know, want to kick on WWE.
Yeah. So that's the thing too. I think it was Brian Last. AEW fans were really going at him because he was like, the booking is terrible in AEW, which is something I don't really disagree with. But it was because the main thing that
I disagree with that. I think it just depends on the feud, you know.
Yeah, but really. It's like the most things that anytime AEW fans defend AEW, it's always by attacking NXT. Whereas like Brian Last is like, both things can be terrible and it doesn't make the other thing good.
Well, here, I just think it's so lame to be an AEW or a WWE guy, because all you're saying is, I prefer this billionaire over this billionaire. Be a fan of wrestling, man. Be a fan of, I like Roman Reigns and Kenny Omega. I like them a lot, okay? I think they're both very good at what they do. I don't need to be like, well, I can't like Roman because I only watch New Japan and AEW. That's just not, you know, and ultimately it's like, you want to, you know, the greatest thing that AEW has done is, and I think really an awesome thing that AEW has done that Tony Khan should be applauded for, is, you know, people are able to use their real names, and I'm sure they're going to be able to use their monikers when they leave, you know, AEW, to either go to WWE or go to New Japan. And, you know, having that freedom is awesome because I root for the wrestlers. I don't root for management. I don't root for who's fucking booking it. I don't, you know, that's not my thing, man. You know, I'm a stand-up comedian. I root for other comics. I don't root for club owners. That's just, you know, that's not why I got into this shit. I don't, you know what I mean? I believe in God, but I'm not a part of any Christian denomination. So yeah, I just think that, you know, you really should. You're really like, you're in an era where like there's so much great wrestling that's available all the time. You're just shortening your enjoyment here. I don't understand why you're doing this to yourself, you know.
I'm very interested to see what they do with that NXT Evolve thing that they've been talking about. If that's just going to be another sort of
because that's going to be like that's going to be like the NXT for NXT, right?
Yeah.
Evolving.
I'm hoping
you watch some of those old like Riddle Lee matches from Evolve. They're like awesome, dude.
That's what I mean. Like they, if I put it sort of like in context, Dynamite had Shaq and Cody as the open for their match, which was good for what it was because like Shaq's never wrestled, and let's face it, like Jade's never had an actual match, but she was still everything was
money, but
everything was well booked for her, like aged for her through it. But the match that was on NXT for that open, that was a brilliant match. The Ciampa and Thatcher against.
Oh, they're so good.
That was such a good match. I mean, the end was, of course, was what it was because it's leading to something else. But just going through it, I'm just like, that's got to, like, in my head, I'm like, this has got to suck that they're putting on such a good fucking match. And they know that probably no one's watching it because they're all over there to watch Shaq.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So it's not
luckily they're going to be moving till Tuesdays, which I think is going to help everybody. I think it's going to also make NXT look a lot different than the rest of the WWE shows, just because it's not going to be up against AEW.
Yeah.
I thought AEW. I thought that match with Shaq was good. My thing is, if it didn't get a monster rating, then it kind of wasn't worth it, and it didn't get a monster rating. So I just saw a fine. Like I saw a match that if somebody was like, "Hey, that guy Shaq, that's his first match," I'd be like, "Wow, that's really fucking impressive." But it wasn't a great match.
No, and it's like I think they did 934,000. So they
didn't crack a million.
And also didn't really take a hell of a lot away from the NXT numbers either, because the NXT numbers were around that
to where they're going to be.
Yeah, and I think that's if people are thinking that and maybe they should be a little bit worried about it. Like AEW is going to grow from that when this is all their. I think they're stuck at that like 800 to 900,000 sort of range. It just seems to be.
Well, TV does go down every year, and that's a real thing. Like I see shows now getting ratings that a show that I've written on was canceled for. And their rating was like, oh, that's a win, and I'm only talking like, a span of 3 or 4 years. So I get it; it's really hard to get traction, but we had this 4-month build. I mean, the build itself was like, all over the place. I mean,
it really was.
They were kind of snake bit by injuries, but I
like how pregnancy is an injury.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot that's what I meant. Yeah. Snake bit by injury. Well, I guess Cody. Yeah, you're right.
She got infected by a Rhodes.
She got she's super cool. I met her back. She's actually probably the most down to earth out of all those guys.
Look, I like her. I just don't like her getting rammed down our throats all the time.
They should have just made her like a white meat babyface manager. Like she was actually really onto something with the Jade Cargill stuff as far as like her temperament. But like the whole thing of like oh, I'm evil. I'm the Nightmare Collective and all. And I'm like, I've met you. You're a nice, smart lady who's beautiful. But then I was like, twisted girl.
But then also it was like, okay, she's pregnant, so we won't see her for a while. That'll be good. She can come back and be refreshed, sort of thing. It'll be when she comes back, it's cool. Brandy's back. It's like, no, I'm going to come out to do a gender reveal, and then like, what's next? They're going to do the baby shower live on Dynamite.
Oh my god, that was crazy.
Because I'm watching that and I'm going, how much money is this, like in real dollars, sort of like TV time, just to do a gender reveal that could have easily been done on their social medias and it would have got the same response.
Well, we were talking about that on the show. Like, say what you want about Vince, but Vince never would have had that shit on.
No.
It would have been a gender reveal, and then Snitsky would have come out and been like, "I'm the real father." And that's what the angle would have been. Like they would have made sure it wouldn't just be I'm having a baby. Like Vince is not about that.
I think that's the one. Like, it's a good thing and it's a bad thing that I think Tony Khan has a hard time saying no.
Yeah, that's actually perfect because it's you're gonna get the stuff. Everyone's you're gonna get a lot of gold, like I think this past week that's the press segment they had was everything that was awesome and bad about AEW was the whole press segment where you had like MJF and Jericho being hilarious and selling me on a match that the build has been okay, but it just turned into a blood feud the last week, which I'm kind of like it's kind of weird.
A fake blood feud.
A fake blood feud, but then the first thing is that the microphone doesn't work, and I'm like, oh, of course, this is like but on the same sense too, like Vince would never allow somebody to say turkey tits. So I guess you get the good with the bad.
Yeah, because I don't know what it's like for the TNT feed, but I know when I'm watching the fight feed, the sound is terrible for backstage promos and all that. It's always dropping out, or like it's almost like you could the microphone you're hearing is the one almost from the camera, and that's it. And it's just like, I was like, you need to sort this shit out. Like I see independent promotions doing shows that are better than this, like sound wise, and they're like, how do you not get this already?
Do you remember? You remember when Edge returned at the Royal Rumble last year?
They did the year.
And they fucked up because they didn't get the first spear.
Yeah.
And people shat on Kevin Dunn for, no joke, like 3 months. But that happens in AEW all the time. There's always like, wait a minute, I missed that finish. Wait, is that like?
Yeah.
Which I get. Like WWE just has a lot more skeletons in its closet, and it's awesome. There's another option for these guys. It really is. So it's ultimately a good thing, and I get why people don't want to tip the apple cart or whatever. But it doesn't mean that that one promotion is necessarily better than the other. It just means that some are better at other things.
No, I think a lot of people nowadays confuse constructive criticism with shitting on.
Yeah.
A lot of times, like, oh, they could have done this better. Oh, yeah, well, NXT did that. No, that's. I'm not
check
talking
out
about
our fat jokes on the big shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you're speaking of like camera angles, like because I do a bit of like video production for the local area. Mm-hmm. One thing that annoyed me is that they hung onto that clip when they went through the table for that bit too long, and you see Shaq give Cody the tap, like, I'm okay.
Yeah.
That's something a lot of people might have noticed, but I noticed. I'm like,
I noticed.
Why did you cut away? Because it was great. I'm just like
like every once in a while with WWF, the closest you'll see to that is everyone, like if it's a big match, sometimes you'll see the guy say thank you. But like, that's kind of cool in a weird way.
Yeah.
Like I'm okay with seeing that. Opposing to, I mean the Shaq thing was, I mean the tap I'm okay, but
yeah. And then he did the Undertaker.
Too, like I'll make fun of Cody. I think Cody's a great wrestler. I think Cody's great on the mic. I think he knows how. I think he's had some phenomenal matches, but I can still make fun of the stuff I don't like. Like it doesn't make me somebody who's like, I don't know. It's all zealotry,
Yeah, I still think, like, even though, like, I know he's old, they are still criminally unusing Dustin.
Oh yeah. Well, if they turn Cody heel, then maybe they can do another program with Dustin. I mean, that guy's so great.
Every time I see him, like he did that Dynamite, the thing with it was Kingston's crew. They did that big blow off match. That was brilliant. I'm like, why aren't they using him more? It's just like, because he's not even on Dark that much. So it's like he's never wrestling, really.
Yeah. I guess he's, like the only thing I will say is, he's in his 50s, so maybe he's more selective about when I certainly would be if I was him. Like, if I was Dustin and they told me, hey man, you're going to have a mean nothing match with like a Peter Avalon or something, I'd probably turn him down. But it's different if they're like, hey, we want you to fight Brody Lee, or hey, we want you to fight your brother. But to just help, like, wrestle a green. I understand that's why you want to use him.
Yeah.
But he's in his 50s now, so it's like fine, use the guy that is in his 40s for that. Don't use the Christopher Daniels and Dustin who are like, they're almost past that, where it's like they should kind of be in there with a good new young guy like Jungle Boy who can like make up for their injuries and shit like that, you know?
Yeah. And then the follow up with Shaq thing when he disappeared from the ambulance, and then there was no. Okay, he's gone. All right, we won't talk about that for the rest of the show. That's fine, he's gone.
Well, and then they brought out Big Show like an hour later, and the whole time you're expecting, Shaq to show up. And no.
I think like one of the points one of your guys made on the Bret Hart show was how much better would it have been if like they'd have signed, because they kept the Paul White signing quiet. Why couldn't have they kept it quiet all the way up to Dynamite and then have him come out during the Shaq match?
Yeah, I don't know.
That would have been.
I don't know if they need. Like I said this before. Like I don't think AEW needs writers. And trust me, I've reached out. I reached out to Tony to send an email to Cody. Be like, I'd fucking love to write for you. I would. So I always say that because in case like somebody's like, well, you probably wanted to write for them. Like, of course I did. It's a fun new wrestling promotion. But they don't necessarily need. They don't need writers, but they do need readers. They need people to be like, hey, you literally are doing the same 3 segments in a row to get heat. Like just don't, like, you guys don't do it next week. Just don't do it this week.
Yeah, well, I've noticed that about anything to do with like Jericho or MJF. They seem to just do the same thing over and over again. Like last time it was the debate. Mm-hmm. And then now it was the press conference, or they just come out and they do you know what I mean? It's always, I was like,
yeah, I
like
think
it's cool because you get to see Bischoff.
I think they're both so great. I think that the problem is they're kind of being used on each other when they would really help. Like I would love to see MJF feuding with Hangman Page. Like I could see those guys really, elevating one another, opposing to like. You have like Jericho, who's one of the best talkers, and MJF, who's one of the best talkers, and they kind of are a similar character, not the same, but they're a similar type of character.
Yeah.
I feel like, throwing them in with somebody who can't talk would really benefit it, like similar to what Jericho did with Orange Cassidy.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing too. Like when AEW started, you thought, all right, Page is the guy. Page is going to be the big baby face to go ahead, and then just he did the thing with Jericho, and then sort of just went, oh, okay, I'll do tags now, and it just I don't know what happened.
They're holding him. They want the big crowning to be him beating Kenny. So they're gonna need to have a couple main events before they can do that match again. So they're figuring out where to put him.
So what's your opinion on the barbed wire death match, exploding barbed wire
excited,
death match?
man. I mean, look, I was really excited when he announced it. The Funk Anita match, you've probably seen it. If anyone who's listening hasn't seen it, it's not a match, it's a spectacle, and it's like a wild spectacle. So I'm looking forward to the spectacle. I don't care if it's, I don't care about the work rate, but this is a match, and I've said this on my show. And on another podcast this week it's that Jon Moxley and Kenny Omega's performance aren't nearly as important as how that first explosion looks and sounds, because if it's a sparkler, that match is DOA, man. Flatlined. Nobody it is a failure. So it really is, the worker in this match has got to be the AEW production crew and whoever is building that, godforsaken structure, to quote Jim Ross. And they've got a lot of really great people in production over there. And then they've got some green people. So hopefully, I don't even know who you get to do it. I mean, would you know where to get, like, you're in the wrestling business. Do you know where to get, if you needed, like, in 6 months, book a show, exploding barbed wire death match, how the fuck do you go about getting somebody to build that?
I'd probably call Anita and say, who have you got? Who do you know?
He probably is the only guy that knows everything.
And they've talked to him, so because he was on this week.
Yeah. That's awesome.
We'll move over to NXT, and I know it sounds lame, but I actually really enjoyed the way thing this week.
It
was the first time I've seen.
I didn't love it, but I was kind of. A lot of people on my pod didn't like it, but I was kind of neutral, I guess.
For me, it was the first time I've ever actually seen any personality from Austin Theory.
That's true. He's got a weird inbred eye thing going, right?
Way too close together.
Like he's like the ugliest a good-looking guy can be.
Yeah, it's like his eyes share the same eye socket.
yeah, it's a little off-putting.
But yeah, like that I liked because it showed he has personality. Indy with her little fucking jokes cracked me up.
Yeah.
I
really like the stable. It's really fun and it hasn't been done before. I mean, Candace is awesome. So's Johnny. I mean, those two, I mean, you know, it sucks it sucks Johnny isn't a foot taller, you know.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys that are like that. Like if you were just that much that much bigger, you'd be massive. But for sure. That and that's I never thought I would say this, but I prefer the wrestling. Like I like the other stuff on AEW. I actually prefer watching the wrestling on NXT. It seems to make the matches seem to make a little bit more sense to me than what the other ones do.
I guess it just depends on what you're. Yeah. I mean, for me, it really just depends even on the match. Like, obviously, like watching, Finn Balor and Roderick Strong have a match is never not going to be good.
No.
But I kind of on the same token, I think I'd rather have a train wreck, car wreck match than a Dexter Lumis match that's just kind of boring,
Yeah. It's a real, such a hard character to get over. And then they're getting him over as a face. I'm like, what are you doing? It's like a tailor-made here. What are you doing?
He's got, he plays the part well. It's a great look. I just don't really love his moveset. And yeah, I don't know. It's just not for me. Not for me, I guess.
Yeah. My favorite thing from anything this week so far has been Tully with FTR, but I am a massive, as you can tell by the shirt, massive like NWA.
Yeah, 80s fan. Sure. Well, that's why you like NXT at its best is like really good NWA.
Yeah, that's probably a very good.
Like when I saw the tag, I went to Takeover once, and it was Mustache Mountain versus the Undisputed Era, and they just fucking tore the roof off the place, dude. Like, it reminded me of like those old, Tully and Arn matches.
Yeah, see, like I'm so jealous of you guys that you get to go to those shows. Like we get to watch them live, but it's like if we go there, it's like having to plan a whole thing to have to go.
A whole month.
A whole month. We'll jump back quickly to your show. So you've obviously been a wrestling fan for eons. Did you sort of just Did you sort of just bump into other comedians that were wrestling fans and thought, let's sit down and do this?
Well, I got asked to do some live thing with David Shoemaker, who's over at the Ringer, and he had he was on Cheap Heat forever, and now he has his own show, The Masked Man, and then I co-hosted that for a little bit, and I just decided to kind of do my own thing because of like I was writing on shows, and I wanted to still kind of take this audience that I had from doing David stuff, and eventually it morphed into this. But yeah, I mean, just one person meets one person. As I was doing this, I ended up doing the roast of Bruce Pritchard, which is where I met Conrad, and eventually did a couple other Starcasts with Conrad. And then when I brought Mike Lawrence and Robert Karpolis, who wrote for the WWE Creative-ish Twitter feed, it's hilarious if you haven't checked it out, it all just made sense. And I was like, well, what's the one thing, Robert's roasting everybody every week. Mike's the best roaster, arguably, in the world.
Yeah.
I've, written on roasts, and, I do not have experience Mike has, but I've been in that kind of world, and I know a lot about wrestling. And Scott, you know, I had one of the highest like roast videos on the internet for a long time. So it was a natural fit, and I think Conrad kind of jumped at it, and it's a nice blending of comedy and wrestling. So yeah, we'll see. You know, we're just starting to we're getting it going now. So we hope it keeps going well.
Yeah, like I'll be honest, I hadn't heard of the show until you hit me up, and then I listened to the show. I'm like, wow, that's something I'm going to listen to every week because it combines.
Oh, that's great.
It combines two of my favorite things. Like I love roast comedy and I love wrestling, obviously.
Yeah, so no, I mean that's kind of what we were looking for. We were just kind of looking for a hook, you know.
Yeah, because like when you hit me up, I'm like, oh, okay, he's verified. I'll check the show. Then I saw Mike Lawrence was on there. I'm like, fuck, I know that guy.
Yeah. Oh, he would love to come on here sometime too. So I'm doing the first round of this. We just announced on the show for Mania week we're going to be roasting Hogan. So maybe Mike will be the next guy.
That's a long segment, right there.
Yeah, it's the embarrassment of riches episode.
What do you think they're going to do? When do you think they're going to announce actual tickets or anything for that? Because it's coming up like in less than a month. Was it less than a month or just over a month?
Have they not announced tickets yet for Mania?
I don't think they have.
I'm sure. Well, first off, like I don't know if any of your listeners know anything about Floridian politics, but Governor Ron DeSantis would let Vince have a packed house if he wanted to. Like Ron DeSantis, you know, believes that, you know, if you think the coronavirus is real, that you're a cuck. But I imagine that probably their team and some of their wrestlers are like, well, what's the safest way to do this, and how many tickets can we put up on sale? But I'm so desperate to see live shows again. I have been tempted to be like, should I go down for a week and just hang out? You know? Yeah.
Well, it's Florida. You'll be able to get on other shows, so you'll be fine.
That's true. Yeah, that is true. Now I probably won't, but
yeah. Well, you're not a part of that crew that are looking to move out to Texas or Florida.
No, I'm moving back. I'm de-evolving. I'm like going back to New York probably for a year. For me it's going to be either you know, New York or LA, and if I can't live, if I could live anywhere I want, it would be like Vermont or, you know, man, because I'm married. I'm like, you know, like you know, I get, you know, when I do a show on the road now, I grab my to-go box and I go home, you know, like, I don't stay out anymore.
Well, that's I had one of the guys from my shoot work, the only business you say shoot work, say to me, like, and he asked me yesterday, he's like, were you ever worried about, like, when this whole Me Too thing come out, that you would get accused of something? I said, well, unless she was in a Macca's on the way home, then it wasn't going to happen. I finish the show and I go straight home. Like, there's a couple of other guys that in the company that are married. We just all travel together. We travel home together.
Right.
So it's usually like stopping off.
It's not like back in the day where Magnum TA could have like 3 different wives, or, you know, like, it's just that's not how things are.
Or the Stan Lane thing at the moment. Oh dear. Yeah, so you're doing the thing. I guess the plans probably would have been, if this was a normal situation, you guys probably would have done a live show, really, because that would have been.
We would have to. No, we would probably do a live show around an AEW. It really just depends on what we can get free tickets to, you know.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna I'm going there as a fan. I'm not going to make enough connections to like make this worth my while, you know. So
yeah.
I want to see a show. I want to see, like, when we saw Double or Nothing, you know. So wherever I can get tickets is probably where we would go next, and whoever could put us up. But we're just building now anyway, and, you know. But the thing about our show is, like, no wrestler is going to be bending over backwards to have us at a convention now, you know. Like, we're going to be burying everybody every week. So it's like, I don't know. Maybe, you know, who knows?
You probably get a Starcast. Surely.
We would definitely get a start. Yeah. I would hope, you know what I'm going to do before our next Starcast? I'm going to only roast the wrestlers that I know have money for the 2 months beforehand. So if one of them takes a shot at me, I could actually get something from it.
Oh, jeez. Thank you so much for joining us, mate.
Dude, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thank you for reaching out. Like I said, if people want to get onto Wrestle Roast and follow you, how can they do that? I encourage people, if you enjoy roast comedy and you like listening to actual sane conversations about wrestling, where these guys don't, because a lot of these guys just don't have an agenda. Because you'll listen to your Cornettes and all these other, they all have an agenda of some description.
Yes, I now that we do a roast, I can safely say, and I almost got it. I almost I was in the interview stage with writing for WWE, but now that I'm doing this show, I can honestly say I will never be able to get a job at any of these companies. So I am completely objective. I love wrestling, but I'm not gonna pull any punches. I have no,
Yeah, that's the one thing I liked about it, because when I was listening to it, I was waiting for, because a lot of times you just hear and everyone will just go, oh, this was great, this was great, this is great, this is great. They never point out the sort of the inconsistencies, whereas you guys did. And that's what I was like, this is good, I like this.
But I will say this about it's the one thing about wrestling more so than any other medium. If you watch a movie and one bad plot point can ruin an entire movie. But with wrestling, it's if you watch a WrestleMania, let's say we go to WrestleMania. If we leave that WrestleMania thinking 3 matches were great, then that is a classic WrestleMania. It's like that one medium where if a third of it's good, it's great.
Yeah.
But
that's actually very true. Because WrestleMania 3, aside from
yeah. But anyway, I'm on Dan St Germain on Instagram, WrestleRoasts. It's on ad-free shows and all things comedy. We also have a Patreon. We're going to be where we usually do after, we're going to be doing a post-Revolution show, and then the following week we're going to be doing Teddy Hart. But the roast of Big Show is out now, as well as the roast of Bret Hart. And next week we're going to be doing the roast of Virgil. So please listen. I just gave up on selling it.
Yeah, please.
Jesus, I'll fucking suck your dick. Anybody.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I will suck Stan Lane's dick and I will not speak out.
No, wow. Or have a daughter that becomes a Republican senator.
Oh, that's what it was, right? Yeah.
Yes.
That was nuts. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. So nuts, man. So nuts.
Thing is, it's the only business in the world that would happen. That could happen to.
Well, I got it, dude. I don't know did you see today? Were you a Mr. Show fan? Sketch comedy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
David
one of the guys
Crossman.
from Mr. Show, I mean, they don't know for sure yet, but it looks like one of the guys from Mr. Show was at the insurrection, and now the FBI has been hey, do you know this guy? So I mean, right now it hasn't been verified, but a lot of his friends think it's him.
Holy Jesus Christ!
Yeah, so I guess it's crazy comes across all stripes.
Mate. Well, once again, thank you so much for coming on. Everyone at home, I encourage you guys, if you like roast comedy, which I love roast comedy. If you love that, if you love wrestling, go and check out Wrestle Roast. Thanks so much for coming on, mate.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
The Ballroom Brawl. Entering into our 10th year of presenting world-class action, Melbourne City Wrestling brings you the annual event that defines us. A single night of incredible competition, where new conflicts ignite and old rivalries will be rekindled. A night in which the strong, the hungry, the audacious, and the brave shall make their case for greatness. Who will rise to claim dominance over the landscape of Melbourne City Wrestling? Who shall stand tall in the prestigious Thornbury Theatre and lay claim to the future? Who will win the Ballroom Brawl?
Once again, big thanks to my guest, Dan St Germain. Follow him on Twitter, follow WrestleRoasts. If you're into roast comedy, get around him because it is a funny podcast about wrestling. Not for the weak at heart. So if you don't get insulted easily, then definitely listen to these guys because it is a really funny podcast that they've got going on over there, and they're doing some really good things. If you haven't already, though, make sure you subscribe to WRA. You can do it on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, anywhere you get your podcast from. We're there. Go and check us out there. YouTube, subscribe so you get every episode as soon as they drop. If you do stop by Apple Podcasts, give us a rating and review while you're there. Give us a 5-star. Helps us get inside more ears and share the show. Spread the word about professional wrestling in this country like I do every week, except for this week. But then again, I still did because we did a bonus episode. I still gave you a bit of Australian wrestling content. See what I do. See what I do for you people. See, normally I would have just done just a normal episode with a guest, and then that would have been it. I'm giving you double. You get doubles this week on Wrestle Radio Australia. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Wrestle Radio AU on Twitter, Wrestle Radio AU on Instagram, Beast Eastman for me on Twitter, Wrestle Radio AU on Twitter. Let's get all those sort of things out. Support Australian wrestling as much as you can in any way you can. A lot of promotions have their stuff on YouTube. Go and find them. Subscribe to their channel so you'll get them all. I know Riot City Wrestling have their shows up not very much longer after it's actually a live show, so you can check them out. Big Top Beatdown from the Fringe is up now on their YouTube channel, so go and check them out. Of course, PWA is on Fight. If you didn't buy the pay-per-view on Friday, I don't know what the hell's wrong with you. Get into it. Go on Fight now. Pause it. Go on Fight. Buy the pay-per-view. You can come back and talk to me about it later. Did you do it? Cool. We'll carry on then. Ballroom Brawl is on tonight, Saturday night in Melbourne. I'm not too sure if the tickets are sold out. If they are, won't be too much longer after that. It will go up online, MCW online, I think it is. So go and check them out when they do. If you aren't in Melbourne and you can't get to the show, do check it out when it's online because it is some of the best wrestling around the country. PWA, MCW right now, juggling for that number one spot with other guys like RCW, definitely in the mix. Don't get talked about as much because they're in Adelaide. I don't know why that is. I don't know if that's some sort of an East Coast bias sort of thing, but they don't. But MCW, PWA, RCW, all EPW, all vying for that number one position. It is great to see. It is great to see the competition in Australian wrestling at the moment. Go and support them. Support all of them as much as you can, and as much that's what we want here. We want Australian wrestling to be so damn strong that the world takes notice of these guys because they put in all the hard work and they deserve to be noticed by the world. If you want to support the local industry, of course, aside from doing that, go onto WrestlerMerch.com, buy some of their merch. They're pretty much, I want to say most of, a hell of a lot of wrestlers now or workers have their merch up on WrestlerMerch.com. It is a great way to support these guys, a great way to support Wrestler Merch, who do great work for these guys to help them having another revenue stream to be able to make some money and support themselves while they're chasing their dream of professional wrestling. No real way supporting us outside of going on Redbubble and searching Wrestle Radio Australia. Anything that I make off that, I donate to men's charities anyway. Gotcha for Life, Beyond Blue. They do a lot of things to fight mental health issues, and it's something that we do really support here at Wrestle Radio Australia. That is it for this week. I'm not too sure what's going on next week. I've sort of left myself in a hole. So watch social media and we'll see who I have next week. I have no idea as of yet who I'm getting. So it's the first time in a while now that I haven't had some guests chalked up. So I guess we'll find out. I'll find out you'll find out when I find out. But until then, it's been Wrestle Radio Australia. It's my opinion. You're entitled to it. We'll see you next week. Hopefully, probably. I'm going to guess. Who knows?
Busy 23, got me feeling way too sweet. Yeah. Too sweet, put your fangs up. Too sweet, pour another cup. Let's be busy 23.